Welcome back, my friends, to episode 6 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. I can't even believe it's been 6 episodes since we started doing this thing. It's been a lot of fun. I can't thank you all enough to those who have listened and subscribed, as well as those who have sent me questions and guest suggestions. The outpouring of support has been really, really amazing, and I'm so appreciative of it. For those of you who are new here, please remember to like and subscribe and tune in every single Wednesday for new episodes. But today, I'm joined by one of my closest friends in the world, Mr. Shai Mehani. Shai is the CEO of In-House Connect, an incredible and vast network of in-house attorneys across the United States. Shai's story is both captivating and inspiring. As someone whose life is the law, yet his true passion lies in curating the means for people to come together. In this episode, he shares incredible advice to those looking to enter into the legal system, as well as those who are looking to build on their already existing networks. He shares stories of his time in matrimonial law and data privacy law, as well as a story of how he almost lost his life. Shai is an expert networker, and to those who consider themselves the same, you can certainly learn a lot by watching and listening to this interview. I'm not going to say much else, so please enjoy. Without further ado, my good friend, Shai Mehani. It would appear to me, and we'll get deeply into your story, but it would appear to me, having been your friend and something of a confidant for the last several years, is that while the law is your life, the law itself is not exactly where your passion lies, but rather it's more of a vehicle for your true passion, which is connecting people and curating the means for people to come together in various contexts. Now, this is something that we have in common, which is why it's easily noticed. Would you agree?
Definitely, we think alike on a lot of things. The Tuesday night class, we're a really good team.
Yeah,
we're a really good team in making that sing, and I'm sure we'll get into this. But the Tuesday night class is when I realized, or at least I think I realized, what my superpower is, and that is, bringing people together.
Yes.
And
you think it was through that
Yeah.
vehicle? And just to add a little context, we have this class that is given by the rabbi in our synagogue once a week, and it started in 2020 as just 3 people on Zoom, the 3 people who now run the class, and we're now 50 people strong each week, which has been something that's like a very fulfilling experience for me and for you and for our other partner in it. So that just adds a little context as to what you're talking about when you say Tuesday night, but yeah, I'm with you. I absolutely love that class. But you believe that that's where it started for you?
Yeah.
Really?
So I guess you tell me where I can go to the beginning of like my journey in this community building world. But
you're currently the CEO of a company that essentially connects in-house attorneys from all over the country or even the world. Mm-hmm. So my first question to you is, how did that start? And how did you find yourself in the driver's seat of it all?
Yeah. So going way, way back.
We got time.
So
you're only on your first drink.
I didn't realize we were gonna have multiple. So it's a really interesting question because there's a few different places we can start, but I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, right? So really, it started when I first went in-house. So I graduated law school in 2010. Terrible time for new lawyers. Typically, if you're lucky, your first job out of law school is going to be your main job, and it's going to set you up for success. And that didn't happen for me.
Right.
My grades weren't good enough. My ranking wasn't high enough. All of that, and the economy was terrible. So I took what I can get, and I started off in matrimonial law. I had a state court clerkship in New Jersey, and my judge was in the matrimonial division, and that set me up for a career in matrimonial law, which is baby mama drama, divorce, child support, alimony, visitation, domestic violence.
It's a very emotional part of law.
I hated it.
How'd you deal with all those emotions? And those people dealing with all their problems.
To be honest, not well. I was not in great shape. Look, at the time I just took what I can get, and I wanted experience, and you get to start early with a lot of responsibility.
Is it how they show it in that show Suits, where it's just ridiculous hours and all working all the time and nonstop? And
there's some truth to it, but it's not as it's not as crazy as Suits, but certainly the people. I'll tell you this: the people are crazy. Their stories are crazy. I have some stories that are NSFW, for this, or not suitable for this podcast.
Why not? Let's hear it.
Guess,
This is, by the way, just to warm you up here a little bit. This podcast is very much a no rules podcast, open forum.
Okay.
I did that very, very intentionally. This is not a real estate podcast, although we speak to real estate people. This is a conversation platform with people that I just want to talk to, and you're one of my closest friends. So this was very, very appropriate, but you can share anything you want. And at the end of the day, if there's something you feel at the end of this all that maybe you don't quite like or you don't want in the public spotlight, I'm the guy who edits all this. So I'll take care of you. I'll punch out anything that doesn't work for you. So speak freely and we'll take it from there.
So matrimonial law is certainly not what I wanted to do long term. Everything was bad. Like my clients were unhappy and they took that out on me. My boss was difficult. The pay was like the worst thing of all. At least, people suffer, but they get paid. Oh man. It was like, the clerkship itself was like 40 grand, and then, got a bump as an associate to 50 grand.
Where were you living at the time?
I was in downtown Jersey City, which actually I enjoyed a lot. I had a lot of good memories there. It's interesting. In law, there's what's called, I think it's called the bimodal distribution of salaries. So imagine a graph where like you have one wave and then another wave, right? And like the median here is 50 grand. And then the median at the second part of the wave is 160. And like the 160 is for like the big law firms. Like that's the associate starting pay is 160. And then like small law, which is where I was 50 grand. And I was on the wrong side of this bimodal, chart. It was just terrible. Like
how do you end up on the right side of that chart?
You go to a top law school, you get great grades, you have great connections, and you're fortunate to work in a great economy.
Right.
It's any of those will shake out for you. So, of course you go into law school, you're thinking, I'm going to end up on the right side of this bimodal salary distribution, but statistically it doesn't work out always the way you expect. So I did the matrimonial law thing, and I did my best. I was good. I got awards. I had some crazy results. Like I got somebody out of paying child support. Like it was some crazy case, which I don't know if I'm like so super proud of, but I advocated for my client, and that case, real quick, I'm sure you're going to ask me about this. Basically, this guy fled the state and they found him after 30 years and they're trying to like get him to pay all the back child support that he ever owed in his life. And I managed to win. I don't know how or why.
What was the number of that? What's 30 years of child support look like?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I got very lucky there. I had some wins.
What was the case, and how'd you get him out of it?
Honestly, I don't. I wish I remember. I just basically, I think I argued that they gave up, that they moved on, or that it's too hard to prove. To go back and establish that he owed all of this money 30 years later. They could have brought this case at any point.
Was this a case that went to trial, or this all happened in kind of
It all
mediation?
happened in front of a judge, like a motion. Family law is a little bit like the wild, wild west, I would say. There was a better story is there was a divorce case. Children were being like not like physically or not like physical abuse, but there was abuse. There was neglect with these kids, and I was able to get them out of there in time for Christmas. Got them with their grandparents, a much better result. So wins like that is what I'd like to focus on. But there was so many bad results. Like I had this one client who came to us to lower his support obligation, his alimony obligation, and it's very hard to do. Generally, there has to be a change in circumstances. This is New Jersey law we're talking about, and you could and it makes sense. You don't want people to just come back to court and if they want to stick it to their ex, they can petition the court to reduce their alimony or child support obligation. There has to be a bona fide reason. So this guy comes into the office. He got totally hosed in his divorce. He didn't have a lawyer. His ex-wife had the mediator, and he basically agreed to pay something he couldn't afford. He could never afford. And he comes to us 5 years later trying to get it reduced. And I told him, listen, you have a lot of risk here. You're going to pay me to go represent you and do this, and you're probably still going to lose because there's no change in circumstance from when you sign these papers till now. So we go, and I had learned a few things from clerking for a judge who handled these types of cases. So I'm I want to see the judge in chambers. That's when you can talk to the judge, try and reason, try and get to a fair result. So I go in, and the judge is not interested in hearing anything I have to say.
Is the other attorney present while
yes,
you're? Okay.
Yes.
So you can't speak to the judge by yourself.
No, you cannot. No, of course not. That would be a disaster. So we're all in chambers, and I'm trying to explain what happened, and there's zero rahmanas. There's zero pity on this poor guy. Okay, zero. So I'm like, whatever, this sucks. So we go back out, put everything on the record. I do my little arguments. The other party does his arguments, and the judge is like, listen, no change in circumstances, no relief. And not only that, you have to pay this, you owe money from something else. Schlocked this guy with even more. That was the last motion I ever argued.
Wow.
I got a crazy defeat, and I'm like, I can't be a part of this anymore.
So would you say you took a beating in matrimonial law? But that was the beginning of your career. Everybody takes a beating in some way.
My first post clerkship job, I remember distinctly. I had this personal injury case that was a dog. Okay, it barked. It was a German Shepherd. It was it was just a terrible case. And the partner sent me to go deal with this really tough motion. And it's me and these seven I was the plaintiffs. There was 7 or 8 defendants from big law firms, and they're all ripping me to shreds, and I'm there taking grenades. So I paid my dues early on. They're not all winners, right? Yeah, they're not all winners.
Actually, first of all, when and we'll get back to the question at hand, which was, how did you find yourself in the driver's seat of this company of In-House Connect? But before you did this, when we first met, you were actually specializing in data privacy as an in-house counsel for Altice. Before that, you were a contracts attorney, you were corporate counsel, you were a litigation attorney, you were a matrimonial attorney. So you have a lot of diversity in your experience. Which of these would you say you were most successful in?
That's a great question.
That's what we're here for.
What does success mean? I would say
that it's the place where you felt you'd accomplished the most, or you were the best at.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I basically, after matrimonial, while I was working as a matrimonial attorney, I went on a bachelor party to Costa Rica, and I had a near-death experience.
Let's hear about that.
Closest I'd ever come to death.
Tell the story in detail.
And I have a poem to go with this. I have to. It's going to be great.
You wrote a poem about.
I wrote a great. I'll pull it up I'll pull it up.
Is it on a plaque somewhere?
On my favorites section of my iPhone photos. I go with my buddies. It's a whitewater rafting in Costa Rica. Okay, Google whitewater rafting, Costa Rica, bachelor party, deaths. And 5-6 different articles will come up about tragedies. People have died. I didn't know this going into it. I had gone once before whitewater rafting with my friends. I had a terrible experience.
I've done it a few times. I've always enjoyed it.
I had the worst experience, and I'm thinking I'm tough, I'm strong, I can do this, I want to face my fears. Big mistake. Or maybe not, actually.
So if I invited you to go whitewater rafting, you'd say no.
I would decline that calendar invite for sure. So go whitewater rafting, and we're 10 guys, we're 2 rafts, and I'm on the back raft, and my cousin, right, leading up to this incident, my cousin is like, please switch seats with me. My legs are hurting me. Like, he actually said his crotch region was hurting him. All right. So,
good
I
excuse.
ignored him for a few minutes and, thinking he'll get over it. 5 minutes later, he's like, please, Shai, please. And I'm like, my cousin, I love my cousin. How could I say no to my cousin? So, and I knew something was going to happen to me. I just knew. So, switch seats with him.
He probably knew too, which is why he wanted to switch seats.
He would probably admit now that he knew something was going to happen. Right. So
he suckered you into this.
So we go along, go down the river, right? And the first of our raft is stuck in the middle of the river. And we come, and we're with two guides, by the way. We had a guide on my raft and a guide on their raft. And our guide pilots us to collide with theirs to push him off of the spot in the river, right? What ends up happening is, like, we collided, and I fell off of the raft into the water, right? I'm fully submerged. Great. Then, and of course, my cousin is safe and warm, and, he's fine. So what happens is the raft goes over me right where I was in the water. And I was, like, bugging. I remember my eyes were shut, and I could just see pitch black. Right? Because it's right over me.
Because your eyes are shut.
My eyes are shut, but the bottom of the raft is just complete black. And you can't, like, I didn't know what to do. Like, they said in the beginning, like, if that ever happens to you, just go like this.
Just give up.
Just give up and
it's
say
over.
Shema. That's what I'm like, oh, you guys know Shema? So I tried to push it up. There was like 6 or like 5 guys. You can't. That's not an option. And I really, like, a few seconds I'm into this, and I'm thinking, like, drowning, death. Like, that's what's in my head. So I pushed myself down, and I just waited, right, for the raft to go. And I wasn't sure how long it took. Whatever. I look up, and I see it's blue. I'm paddling up, and like like one of those gasps of breath. And I'm like. I see they're all, like, waiting for me, like, down the river. And my friends are cracking up. They think it's the funniest thing in the world. And it was. Like, I looked at it, and I looked at the video. You could see, like, my oar ominously rolling down the river without me. It's like a little bit. I didn't get the whole thing, but you could see my raft, like, or my oar going on without me.
Oh my gosh.
So after this, I felt like this was the closest I've ever come to death. I thought I got a real chance of dying at this, and people have died, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. But people have died in this. So on the way back to the airport, I had zero desire to go back to a job, a career that I hated. And I felt like, listen, I miraculously survived. I'm not gonna, every second is a gift. I had one of those realizations. Wow. And I'm like, I can't, let me take some risks. My rent is cheap. I have nothing to lose. Why not shake things up? So that was like the beginning of my pivot.
It's interesting how you tied those things together.
Yeah, that's my pivot. Wow. I'll share my my poem real quick.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm actually very proud of this poem. It's the only time I've ever written a poem. Okay. It's called My Big Surprise. Please switch seats with me, my cousin said. My testicles are hurting. I fear they may have bled. I knew I had no choice, and my heart was filled with dread. Forward, yelled the guide, and on we went. I switched seats with my cousin, wishing I could vent. Down the river we went, bumbling and fumbling along the way. Where the other raft was, I simply could not say. Look over there, my cousin said. Stuck on a rock in the middle of a furious rapid, the other raft lay. Why we were headed directly for the raft, I simply could not say. We edged closer and closer, faster and faster. Am I the only one who realized this is going to be a fucking disaster? I felt the two rafts collide, and I knew I could not stay. To hell with this raft. I'd rather live to see another day. Little did I know the danger that I sought to flee was patiently waiting for me. Engulfed by darkness, surrounded by icy water, I continued to tumble, I continued to falter. I held my breath and shut my eyes. I'll only be here for a quick second, I thought, but I was in for a big surprise. Holy shit, I thought. Could it be? That's the raft, and it was directly above me. I tried to surface, I tried to rise, but the bottom of the raft was my big surprise. Calm down, I thought, think this through. In 3 seconds, the raft will no longer be directly above of you. I held my breath and counted to 3. Up I went, determined to get free. I looked to the sky and saw the bright blue, and I knew then that my life was going to continue. To the side of the river I swam, ready to claim my prize. A new lease on life I had, all thanks to my big surprise.
Wow. That's a beautiful poem.
That's the last time I ever wrote a poem. And that was, I have a timestamp. That was June 4th, 2014.
That's really nice.
That's a long time.
You should get that like printed and framed or something, because what it represents is more than just, a good story. It's kind of like when you realize, okay, it's time to make a change in my life.
Yes.
And it's time to kind of live each day like it's the last one.
My own coming of age story, right there.
No more divorcees and
no more
alimony and all that. It's a little too emotional.
It's it's the truth. That's my story. So after that, like a month or two later, I actually went to go work for my brother. Love my brother. He has a wholesale company. He makes baby shoes, baby
I saw your brother this weekend, actually.
In Allenhurst.
Allenhurst,
yeah. So
he doesn't know who I am, so I kind of just like see him from a distance. I'm like, that's the guy that looks like Shai.
Yeah, he might know who you are. I'll be sure to point in the summer. I'll be sure to point you out. So I went to work for him for a little bit, and I basically said either things are going to go great and I'll work with him, and that's what I'll do forever, or I'll take what I can, make a legal, I'll do all the legal stuff I can, and then hopefully pivot in-house. And what ended up happening was I did all the legal stuff I could, and there was an opportunity to work at a tech startup as a junior in-house counsel. And that was my big break. Once I applied, it turns out I had a friend from law school who was VP of legal at this tech startup, and that made all the difference. I got my foot in the door, I got the job, and that's when my in-house career started, and I just went on a completely different trajectory ever since.
And you just devoted yourself to being in-house counsel for whoever
Correct.
It was. So,
Correct.
Well, what are the advantages of like a major corporation working with in-house counsel as opposed to a Morrison Cohen or a Kirkland & Ellis?
Right. So, I mean, it's an interesting question. A lot of people. There's a lot of dimensions to this question because, abstractly, one versus the other, it's not really a fair description. It's not really a fair comparison. But what tends to happen is people go work at a firm for their first part of their careers. They get experience, they get knowledge, and then they go work in-house. And they go in-house because it's a pay cut usually, but it's better work-life balance, and there's potential higher upsides with the firm. Sometimes people work at a firm for 6 or 7 years, and they're not going to make partner, and there's nothing else for them to do. Or they're just burnt out from the heavy workload. You don't have to work nights and weekends if you're in-house counsel, but you probably do as a big law attorney.
Yeah, as a corporate
lawyer.
Yeah.
So for me, I was very fortunate that I got that job. It was perfect for me. It was just, it was a blessing, to be honest. It was just a great position. I got great training. The company was like a unicorn. And
so what'd you do for, I mean, I know you specialized in data privacy. So was that what you were doing with them?
Not at that point. I specialized in negotiating contracts. So every business out there has lots of contracts, right? Whether it's with other businesses, whether it's with consumers, customers, with employees, right? Your employee contract is a contract essentially. So I was hired to do contracts, and I got great training essentially. It was a junior position, and I learned from my first boss, and then who happened to be my friend who got me the position, and then she left, and I got another boss, and he trained me even more than she did, and that set me up for tremendous success. Just generally, in-house lawyers who work for companies, you have to know how to negotiate contracts and draft contracts, edit contracts. So that's the foundation that led me to other positions as an in-house lawyer.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back for a minute. Why the law to begin with? Why did you make the decision to go to law school?
So, I mean, it's
a great question. You said you have
question.
A brother who works in wholesale. Your father's not an attorney.
No, my dad's a banker, or he was a banker.
So what Why the law?
I thought that, to be honest, there was like maybe three reasons. One is I thought my strengths aligned with law school. I thought that I could play the game and succeed and be on the right end of that bimodal salary distribution. I was great at reading, I was great at writing, and that's what law school is,
Right.
essentially. A lot of reading and writing. And I thought, like, that's my strengths, let me play to that. And then so there was like a big dash of that. And then there was a big dash of, my mom thought it was a good idea. And like, want to make mom
A Jewish
happy.
mother always believes a lawyer. Being a lawyer is a good
Exactly,
idea.
exactly.
Or a doctor.
I have a super funny, embarrassing, side point here. I ended up enrolling in Brooklyn Law School. I could have gone to other law schools on a free ride, right? Not like nothing crazy, not like Harvard or Yale, but I could have gotten a free ride. And I picked Brooklyn Law School because at the time, The Apprentice, right, starring Donald J. Trump, was like the number one show in television.
So that inspired you.
And so one of President Trump's advisors, I forget his name, but he was like right sitting next to him in the boardroom when they fired people, and he was a professor at Brooklyn Law School. And I'm like, I'm going to Brooklyn Law School. Like, that's the dumbest reason to pick a law school, and like I whatever. It's just very funny that I ended up picking it because of that.
It's not a dumb reason. I feel like we often don't realize, or we like, the things that may seem trivial in a way and how we landed where we are not actually. Like I've been in the real estate business for 12, 13 years. And when I was early in the game, I was just renting apartments. But it wasn't until I saw Ryan Serhant on TV that I was like, oh, like I think this is what I want to do. I want to kick it up and go high end with all of this. And I like made it a point to go and meet him 10 years ago. So it's like, you just kind of never know where you're going to draw inspiration from. So it's interesting, but sometimes it's just something as little as seeing something on TV,
Yeah. I look back and I laugh. But that was a big reason why I went to Brooklyn Law, because that one guy, he ended up, I never took a class with him. I never saw him. I think he passed away, unfortunately, like shortly after I enrolled. So, but looking back, I had a great experience in law school, and BLS is a great institution, and I made lots of friends, and it's wonderful. So no regrets in hindsight, but just my thought process was not so, analytical.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little. So by the time I met you were in-house counsel for Altice, which is a very, very big company. So you went on quite a climb, to get to the top of the mountain. But I would imagine, being a corporate attorney for Altice is a pretty solid position. Yeah. So what were you doing for them?
Yeah. So I'll quickly summarize where I was before that. After the tech startup, I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue. That, like, getting laid off from Saks was also like a pivotal moment in my career. I realized that probably sent me on the path towards entrepreneurship more than anything else. When I really felt like I did my best, I was a strong employee. I worked hard. I gave it my all, and I still got let go at the end of the day. That left a crazy strong impression on me, and that kind of like, I wasn't jaded necessarily. I wouldn't say I was jaded, but the wool was off my eyes, and I was seeing things clearly. So after that, I worked for a few different legal departments in like a temp role, filling in for maternity. People were out on maternity leave. And I had wonderful experiences, made friends, learned a lot more, got better. And then when I was on assignment, Altice reached out. They had this junior-ish role where you would be handling contracts and learning data privacy. And I was like all in for that. And that's how we got to that point. So did contracts and then did data privacy as well, and got much more involved in the business of internet, of TV, of phone, of mobile phone. And it was wonderful. I was there for 5 years, and then I ended up leaving to run In-House Connect full time.
Well, we're going to get into In-House Connect, but it's funny, you opened this conversation by saying that most people's trajectory in the world of law is that when they graduate law school, they kind of find a position at a firm or something, and that's where they are for the greater part of their career, and they grow and, eventually become partner and then senior partner and then name partner or whatever it is. And you're right. That's really not what you went through at all. You bounced around a lot, but I would imagine that, created a lot of resilience in your life. And, you also, like you said, you met lots of people. I'm sure that must have contributed to your networking agenda as you, entered In-House Connect.
Yeah. I from the matrimonial days, the networking was top of mind. From that matrimonial law, it was a big value, and frankly, it was encouraged because it's a small world. Your adversary today, it's all the same people. It's like, I don't know, 500 lawyers maybe who practice matrimonial law in any given state, maybe more in New York, but New Jersey, I would say 500 to 1,000. So small world, and in counties, it's very county specific. So it's a very small world, and your adversaries end up becoming judges, or, and like, it's very important to meet everybody. You could settle cases that way. It's just much, much better. So from matrimonial, I had a strong bent towards networking. And then when I went in-house from matrimonial, a big impetus for me to start this networking journey was I was scared that I was going to fail at being an in-house lawyer, and then I would have to go back to matrimonial law. So I was looking to meet in-house counsel, to network from right as I went in-house. Like a month or two after I went in-house for that tech startup, I joined a networking group that eventually became In-House Connect. So from very early on, I was inclined towards networking. I would say 100% the resiliency that came in. That's coming into play recently as I started In-House Connect as a business.
Yeah, well, now you've gone full-fledged entrepreneur, so welcome to the club.
Yeah,
but and it is quite a club. but yeah, talk to me a little bit about what In-House Connect is and how it started, and then again how you ended up in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Was there a hostile takeover of sorts?
It's a midnight coup.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're back. I just joined the tech startup, and I'm looking for networking opportunities for In-House Counsel because I wanted to get in. I wanted, in networking, you have to build your network before you need it. And when you need it, you can't build it.
Right.
That's a great quote I heard recently. When you need it, you can't build it. So I was very on top of that.
I'm gonna write that one down.
So I Googled, dusted off Google, and a meetup group for in-house lawyers came on. It was a New York In-House Counsel meetup group on meetup.com. I looked it up. It basically met in New York City once a month, free continuing legal education credits, hosted by a law firm, cocktail networking reception.
They would just get together and network amongst each other.
Exactly. It would be basically lawyers have to keep like real estate, associates and brokers. You have to keep your education, credits and all of that. So lawyers have the same thing. And this was basically a presentation hosted by a firm.
And it goes towards those credits?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, for free.
Great.
It was free. It was in Midtown. I was working in Midtown. So I signed up. I started to attend these events, and I loved it. I made friends, and I got my boss to come. We made friends. Networking is so much easier when you have a friend, and that's something I learned early on.
Someone to work the room with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We do well together in a room.
Oh, we would kill it. We would crush it. We're talking. One thing I always would do, and this is instrumental in my success, I think, is if it's me and you talking at a networking event, I see somebody who's just like roaming, who's alone, who's solo. I'll be like, hey, I'll introduce myself to them. I'll introduce them to you. I'll bring them into
You're very
the
inclusive.
circle. That was a huge component of the vibe and the feel that I wanted to generate when I ended up taking over the group.
I've noticed that about you. We hosted a Shabbat dinner at the synagogue last year. Mm-hmm. And I remember distinctly that, you could have sat at a table with me and my wife and the other friends of ours, but you guys were like, no, we're going to go sit at a table where nobody knows us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually Sarah's That was Sarah's
Oh,
idea,
you
and
married
I
the
loved
right
it.
girl.
I'm like, so you took the words right out of my mouth, and that was perfect. This year, we're sitting at a table with our friends. So.
You didn't quite like. You didn't quite like the
we
crowd.
liked it, but you know what? Now this one's
Good.
for us.
Well,
We're
I'll do that thing where you bend 2 chairs over the table to reserve your seats next to ours.
Yes. So I started to attend this networking event or this networking group, and the key to networking is consistency. And I was consistent. I went to every session. I made friends. That's how you make friends. You see somebody once, twice, 3 times. Oh, you build a rapport. And I just started to get more involved. And I told the gentleman running the group, his name is Brian Greenberg, is a man I love and appreciate and have a lot of warm feelings towards. I said, if you ever want somebody to help you run this, I love what you're doing. I would love to help you run this. I said, yeah, that sounds good. He sat on it for a year, like a year solid went by, and then he reached out to me. I had just taken the job with Saks Fifth Avenue, and he's like, hey, the guy I'm running this group with, he's leaving. He's moving to Washington. If you want to, if you're still interested, I would love to work with you. And I said 100%, and we started to run the group together at that point. So I would reach out to firms and get them to host events. I would help them with the topic and so on and so forth. And then I told Brian, I said, well, listen, LinkedIn, like, why don't we do a networking session? Why don't we do like just a networking drinks holiday party? He's like, oh, great idea. So we went, we got sponsors, we got space. We made that happen. We had like a rooftop party and same principles. Like I would look, people as the host, people would want to talk to me. And I love that. And that's wonderful. But I would look for the loners. I would look for the lone wolves. So the people who are coming for the first time, I would go out of my way to talk to them. Wow. And then
that's a good approach, honestly, especially for a real esite agent. By the way, that's a great approach for a real estate agent. So I'm learning a thing or two here.
I take some notes.
Write that down.
Yeah, I made sure, like, because it was very easy for me. People wanted to talk to me, and that's wonderful. I'm happy to talk to you, but let me make sure that the person who went out on a limb, who is like 50-50 about coming, is having a good experience. Right. So I, like, once I became like the host and like really became a part of it, that was like my main thing. Then I started to tell Brian, I'm like, listen, we're doing all this work. Why don't we build a brand? Why don't we build a brand, rebrand ourselves? Let's go onto LinkedIn. Meetup is great, but it's not really the forum where In-House Counsel, congregate. It's not where lawyers congregate. If you're a bird watcher, you can find great bird watching groups to associate. I'm just speculating, but I'd imagine that's where,
those types of things. It's not as sophisticated as LinkedIn.
So let's go on to LinkedIn. I had this idea for messaging people, inviting them to the group, inviting them to our events. It would just be much easier to do.
Yeah.
So we did that. We had this big party to announce it. Our rebrand and it was very successful. We had a lot more people starting to come to our events. Like, it was working. We were growing. And then, then it was very interesting. Me and Brian were like basically partners at that point. And every Saturday morning I would wake up, I would take out a yellow paper and I would try and figure out, how does this become a business? Like, how are we ever going to monetize? Because we were not big enough to attract significant dollars. Now I know how hard it is to really make an investment worthwhile for a firm or for a company. It's extremely hard because it's a numbers game, right? 1 out of 5,000, 10,000 people are going to be interested in buying a product or a service or hiring a firm. And if you're 800 people, right, or 1,000, it's not going to work for them. So I would I spent hours and hours trying to figure this out, and I couldn't figure it out, frankly. So what ended up
how to make money for the company.
Could not figure it out.
So up until this point, it was just like a little passion project? You were just doing it for fun?
It was more than a passion project. It was, fair. Depends what your definition of passion project is.
I think that anything, like the thing that the truth is you're proving a big point with this story, because the thing that you're willing to do for free is that thing that you love. Like when when I'm training new team members, we go through an exercise of who is your ideal client. And this is a lesson my coach taught me. So when you think about who your ideal client is, it's who's the person that you'd work for free for. Like, who's that person that you're not even thinking about the money as it relates to that. And I think this is a very similar conversation. Like, you went through all this, building this brand, you didn't make $1 from it until you started thinking.
I have a great story about how we made our first dollar, okay? How we made our first dollar was this.
Did you tape it on the wall?
No, it
like
was
a diner?
It was in ACH. It was bits. I can't tape bits, but this is a great story. So it's like, I think it's 2019, and we were hosting a holiday party, and we got sponsors. And at this point, I was getting a little closer to figuring out the puzzle of how to make money. I was getting closer. And one thing I didn't realize, but I realize now, that I love to sell. I love to go to a sponsor and I say, hey, you should give us $5,000 because, you're going to get this, that, and the other. And why are you different than other groups? Well, because X, Y, and Z. Like, I loved to sell. I never got the chance as an in-house lawyer to sell. Nobody's selling. Maybe they're persuading, but they're not selling. So we did this holiday party in Soho, and it was supposed to be a rooftop party in December, and we got heated tents. We got, it was going to be awesome. It was going to be beautiful. 150 people. I got tons of sponsors. Awesome. So I go there a little early, right, to see how things are going, and I see fire department people coming in and out, firemen coming in and out, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? It's not what you want to see, right? An hour before the thing. So the guy comes and he's like, listen, the fire department came in. They're upset. One of the neighbors complained. We have gas heaters on the roof, and you're not allowed. That's not the code. We can't do it on the roof. We have to put you in the basement. We have to put you in the basement of the building. I'm like, the basement of the building? I have an hour until people start showing up. I go into the basement. It's a WeWork type communal thing going on with little offices and a kitchen. And I'm like, how are you gonna turn this into a? This
Why
is
not
a
just get rid
disaster.
of the heat lamps?
It was freezing. You cannot have people up. It was not gonna work. So I'm like, okay, cool, calm. I was working on my my bitachon at that point.
Your
I'm like, Hashem has a plan. I was pretty cool, calm, and collected. Brian was a lot more nervous than me, but understandably so. But I'm like, whatever, fine, going with it. So ultimately, they ended up, honestly, nobody really knew the difference, funny enough. We had a great party in the basement. Everybody had a good time. We had a lot of people show up. It was wonderful. So the next day, I'm like, listen, I paid for the roof. You gave me the basement. I got to get some money back. So that year, all the money we got was the delta from what they refunded us for the roof to the basement.
So it was significant.
It was several thousand dollars. And that's all the money we basically ever made up until that point.
And at that point, you're still thinking about, how am I going to make money for this thing?
Exactly. I'm like, maybe I could do chapters in different cities. Maybe I can do these types of networking events more. I don't know. I was still trying to be playing with my pen and paper and whatever. Then, of course, COVID hits. And that's when a huge turning point in my life and in the story of In-House Connect. And that's when things really changed.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it. Keep going. Don't let me stop you there. But I do know this part of the story, that in 2020 is when kind of the virtual meetup started.
So what happened was, I had this vision. I had this idea. One morning, I was like, what if so Zooms were taken off, webinars were taken off. Overnight, Zoom became an acceptable thing and easy, and everybody loved it. And I said, wow, what if I had this webinar for In-House Counsel that was so good, that was so compelling, every in-house lawyer in the country was tuning in. What if, I'm like, I can make that happen. I felt like I did a ton of, we kind of glossed over this, but we did a number of events, in-person events always, but they were good and people enjoyed them and they were in-house counsel focused. And I felt like I had a really good sense of what is compelling for this audience. And I just felt like I can make that happen. Like that was a very achievable thing and audacious and inspiring. Like I was like that is the kernel that I want to work towards. And so what ended up happening with my partner is I reached out to him. I'm like, listen, I want to get going on this. And he was he was shaken up from COVID. He was like, he was not in the place where he was ready to, double down on an entrepreneurial venture. And frankly, it was stressful. That experience in December with that holiday party, starting from scratch, his heart was not into it. So I took over. I took over 100% at that point.
Is he still a shareholder of sorts?
No. I at that point I bought him out 100%, or like I think it was May.
Oh, you bought him out.
Bought him out. I gave him, it wasn't like.
All right, so it wasn't like you didn't Winklevoss him.
No. I mean, may I wonder. That's he maybe he can come on the podcast and talk about how he feels. But I don't think he would say that. I think that at the time, I told him this. It's funny. I said, like, look, this business, we were talking about what's like a number, how would you value it? I said, like, look, this is a farm, right? This is a field, right? This business. You still have to plant. You still have to pray for rain. You still have to sow. You still have to harvest. You still have to go out. So, like,
take the rocks out.
Exactly. You still have to remove the rocks. Good private joke there. You still have to, like, it's still a lot of work. It's not like it's just gonna fly. Money's gonna rain down from the heavens just from this brand. So it doesn't matter.
All that work's coming from you.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm like, why? So I'm not gonna pay you at, like, whatever. So we figured out a number. We ended amicably, and I just, from then on, I took over and I went from there. And frankly, as I stand right now, right, in 2013, late 2013, the hardest period in this business was right at the beginning, is getting it off the ground.
That's every business.
It was super turbulent in the beginning. Just trying to get my bearings, until I got my bearings. It was very, very hard. But yeah, so that's basically, since from COVID, pivoted, started to do these webinars, did a proof of concept a few times just to see what it would be like, right? Would people tune in? Would people enjoy it? Would people network? And the response was very strong. People enjoyed it. I had 100 people. We never had 100 people, like, for an in-person presentation at a firm before. And I'm like, wow, there's something here. So then started to do a few more, built a website, built an email list.
This is all really in 2020.
This was starting in like late 2020.
This is while you're at Altice, or Altice came a little later.
So I was at Altice. I was at Altice in August 2018 is when I started.
So you had to meet. You were able to keep the lights on while you were building this thing.
Yeah. Yes. I did. Like, don't get me wrong. I worked very hard on it the whole time. But yeah, it was a side hustle for sure. But it wasn't really.
It usually starts that way, and we all hope that our side hustle is going to gobble up our main hustle.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what we entrepreneurs all wish for that. Like, I have a company that focuses on marketing and hospitality. I would love to see that, like, swallow my real estate business as the primary source of income. I think I'll always have a hand in real estate because I love marketing homes. But when you think about, like, the thing that you really, really deeply love, and then relate that to the context that you really, really deeply love, I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how that...
You're a great marketer.
Well, thank you.
And creative genius. I mean...
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I think that most creators, one of the things they struggle with is they don't really trust their taste. But we have to trust our taste, And even if the audience, not all of the audience, connects with you, a solid percentage of them will, And I'm not going to deny that it takes, a certain level of talent to be able to execute creatively. But so I'm not, like, taking that element for granted. But I certainly wouldn't call myself a creative genius. I just kind of put my thoughts out there.
Or you attract the people who are, that your content resonates with.
Yeah, well, I think like it depends on what the content is, but like I say this all the time to clients that I'm pitching, is that luxury is attracted to luxury, and the quality of the marketing really determines the quality of the buyer that's going to walk through your door. So, and that's why my specialty over the last, decade has become really round 2 of listing a property. It's taking over after another broker couldn't get the job done. Because most brokers don't, or still even in this market, most brokers don't really understand the importance and the impact that marketing really makes. Like the experience that someone has on the surface looking at an apartment online, it has to be parallel to the experience they have in person. Otherwise, what's going to really bring them through the door? Like, the classic example is that first thumbnail image that you see if you're looking on a Street Easy list. Whether it's rentals or sales, doesn't matter. If you're looking for an apartment on the Upper East Side, let's say you want to spend between $1 and $2 million and you want 1 or 2 bedrooms. Hundreds of options are going to come up, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in the real estate business or how thorough of an individual you are, you're just not clicking on every single one of them. You're just not. What you are going to click on is the thing that pulls your attention just for that brief moment in time. And usually what that is that thumbnail image. It's that very first image. So I tell clients this all the time. This is the most important part of your marketing right here. This is exactly where the deal starts. Unless your address is a Fifth Avenue address or, a really attractive avenue address, you can't rely on that to be the click. People say all the time, like, homes, my home sells itself. This house, it sells itself. This boat, it sells itself. Whatever it is. But the reality is that, yes, while that's true, oftentimes a home does sell itself, even though, nobody can really see the home in the eyes of the current owner. They're connected to it emotionally. Oftentimes a home does sell itself, but that only happens once the buyer's through the door. It doesn't happen before that time. So you can't brokers still assume, and sellers still assume that people are going to understand their home the way they do. And it's just not the case. So that's for me, it's I've always seen it as a very simple solution. Make it look better, make it nice, that's elevate it all. That's really the trick to it. You just have to, you have to realize when the marketing is failing the product or the property or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think your content evokes an emotional response. I think you connect emotionally with your prospective buyers, and that's part of what I'm trying to do with In-House Connect is, and this is kind of a third level thing, is I want people to think of In-House Connect as a gateway to their success, like a partner to their success. You tune into our webinars, they're free. They're free CLE, and we have more to say about
what's CLE.
CLE is continuing legal education credits. So that's a benefit right there. People spend hundreds of dollars to get these credits, and we offer them for free. I offer a ton of value, for free, to monetize.
So every
audience.
time you have a webinar that someone sponsors, the attendees can attend for free.
That's exactly right.
And can your average Joe attend, or you have to be an attorney?
So it's a great question. Theoretically, they can. I try to make it easy for people to sign up for our webinars. Because
it's really it's just a value add that you're just offering for free, and it's the thing that every big content influencer, like a Gary Vee, for example, or Ryan, for example, this is the big thing. You must add value, and that's all you do is add value. It's the core of it.
Exactly. It's free, and I tell it's funny. I go and I pitch to law firms to do these webinars, and they say, "Do I have to pay to present?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's a sponsored event because it's free for the attendees. It's our goal. It's in both of our interests to get the biggest audience possible right? But somebody's got to, basically somebody has to pay for it.
And what's the value that the guy paying gets?
So it's really interesting. It's basically business development. It's demand generation.
Lead generation.
It's lead generation, and it's not. So it's interesting.
But it's all attorneys though. So wouldn't it be more of like a referral?
It's so. Me personally, I have a broader view of like marketing and demand gen. I understand it a lot more than the average partner at a firm, because the average partner at a firm, number one, there's a lot of opportunities for them to speak for free. Literally anything, their time is their money, right? That's their product. So if they spend an hour talking to you on the phone, that could be $800 an hour, right? So that's their product. And I understand where they're coming from. I'm saying to them, hey, not only do you not make money, but you pay me to do it. It's an uphill climb with some people who don't understand. On the other hand, they get the list of people who attend and who register, who sign up. So I go out there. I have an audience, right, of over 50,000 subscribers.
Are there, and they're all lawyers?
They're all ostensibly they're all like 99%, right? Are a lawyer. I can't say 100%. That's one thing law school taught me, right? If the answer is never or always or whatever, it's usually the wrong answer. So not 99%, right? I gotta try and keep it 100 as much as I can. So 99% are in-house lawyers. I have like a few scragglers here and there, but that's my audience. So let's say it's a real estate for in-house counsel, right? How to negotiate leases, how to do joint ventures, how to buy a building, I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of different topics. So we'll go, law firm will pay me whatever amount of money to host this webinar. So I create a flyer, I create a landing page, and then I go out and I promote to my audience, an audience that frankly they would never have access to before. So we go and we average about 400 attendees per webinar for CLE. And typically, that's just attendees. The registrations are double that. So 50% attend, 50% don't attend. So they'll get the list. So first of all, everybody who attends, the idea is that they have an interest in this subject, that they are dealing with whatever it is that they're talking about. So if there's legal questions, if there's complicated questions, if there's whatever within that sphere, the person who is presenting is top of mind for them. So it's happened where people who have attended, they want to talk to our speakers, and we help facilitate that. It's as a business development initiative for our speakers. Right. So after the program, we say, hey, are you interested in having a one-to-one with our speaker to talk real estate law, to talk, leases, to talk whatever? People will say yes. We'll verify that that they intentionally want to talk to them, that it's not like some BS. People will say yes. Once they pass the screen, we pass them, and then that's a qualified lead for the firm, and that is a tremendous value add. At the same time, they'll get the full list of attendees and the full list of registrations.
And contact info.
Emails.
That's great.
So
so let's say I'm a real estate agent and I want to reach more attorneys, because the referral business within the attorney sphere is tremendous. It's vast. I think that I spent a great deal of time building my list of estate attorneys, because estate attorneys always know people who need to sell. So let's say I wanted to come and give a webinar to your network. At the end of that webinar, I would receive a contact list, a full list of everyone who attended, and I'd be able to use that for my own lead generation efforts. Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. How soon can I book one of these?
Here's the thing. I don't have so many estate attorneys, unfortunately.
No, but you still, the attorneys know estate attorneys, and attorneys know people who want to sell. And here's the best part. As an attorney, legally, you are also a real estate broker.
Right.
Which means you can accept referrals. Which means that if you knew people who want to buy or sell real estate, you could be making 25% all day. So it's like, that. I
need a pen and paper. I need to write this.
No, seriously. Down. I would love to do referral deals with you.
It's monetizing this audience. So what I try to do, it's not just about the money for me, because theoretically, I could put up, if the content is bad, I guess stated otherwise, there's a correlation between the event and my brand's rating in the eyes of the audience, right? So if it's a great event, then I have a great rating with my audience, and people value In-House Connect. If it's a poor event, In-House Connect's reputation suffers. So it's in my best interest, frankly, to find the best content I can for my audience.
What makes a good event? Just the speaker?
So there's actually a few things that make a good event. I like to say that Malcolm Gladwell has his 10,000 hour rule, which is you do something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert. I tell people I've sat through 10,000 hours of continuing legal education classes, and so I'm an expert in continuing legal education classes.
So what do you do for your own continuing legal education?
Oh, I'm good to the next decade, okay? I tune into every IHC webinar. I can bank some, my great-grandchildren can have some of the good. It doesn't work.
It's like not obviously. Like asking a barber who cuts your hair.
Right. That's a good question. That's a good one. I'll tell you, I guess there's like a few different things that we try and do at In-House Connect to make it a elevated experience for our audience. There's a lot of webinars that are boring, that are just, somebody talking, nobody asks questions, nobody interacts. And that is not the experience we want. That's boring. Like, the audience could be making a salad in the background. And that's, nobody would know the difference, and that's not what we want. So we like to, I personally, this is like kind of like...
So is it like a cameras on rule or something?
No. Actually, we did that in the beginning, and some guy was like strumming a guitar as the presentation is going, and I'm like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah,
so
there were so many of those stories when during COVID of people getting caught on camera, doing various things during their meetings, thinking the camera was off.
No, everybody's camera off. Everybody is muted and they cannot unmute. It's all in the chat box. So we do two things. I encourage my speakers, my sponsors to ask poll questions, right? Poll questions. Just a simple poll questions. Do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you about X? And it could be.
So that's how you do your research.
It's great for a couple of reasons. One is you keep the audience engaged, number one, and number two, it's great if you have 400 people on a Zoom, on a webinar, and they're your ideal profile. They're the people who could potentially give you business, or you want to work with them. It's a great opportunity. Why would you pass up the opportunity to ask them a question? Surely you have something to ask these people,
right?
And you want to know. Let the data guide you for your next webinar, for your next initiative, your next article, whatever. It could be a million things. So poll questions are a huge thing. And then the second thing is I also encourage people, at the beginning of the programs that we do, you've not attended an IHC event yet, I don't think. So This week I have 2 coming up. You gotta tune in, and you'll understand.
Love to send me an invite.
I'll send you an invite. So in the beginning of the webinar, I welcome people. I prime the program, and I give people instructions on interaction. I make it a point. I say, we want you to be involved. I don't want this to be a static. I want your voice to be heard. So engage with the poll questions as they come up, and get involved in the chat box. And there's a few ways you can do that. First is I encourage people to network through the chat box. How do you network through the chat box?
Communicate.
You write a blurb about yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and include a link to your LinkedIn profile page if you're looking to connect with others.
Yeah, or just ask questions.
People, has
anyone ever dealt with this type of case?
Tons of questions.
That's
in
great.
Real time, I get tons and tons of questions.
This is like what Ryan did with the Sell It Like Sirhan community. He put together this whole community on Facebook and LinkedIn of real estate agents across the globe that are communicating with each other and asking questions. And now, where the brilliance of it is that the referral network is now vast. That's a big reason why I think real estate agents, you could probably make a bunch of money getting real estate agents to present, because if just for the context and the referral-based business that they can try to build. So let me tell you something. I want to do one of these events. Let me ask you this. What would it cost me to do a 20-minute speaking engagement to your audience?
So I'm not necessarily going to answer your question. I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to put a dollar number on this.
All right, let me pour you another drink and then you'll answer.
You know what? I will take a little bit, because it is strong. I feel it. Yeah.
It's good though, right?
I will say this. My job as, CEO of In-House Connect, of a content curator, it's not to get the most money from my sponsors. It's to originate a win-win-win situation. Right. I want to win for In-House Connect. I want to win for the sponsor, and I want to win for my audience.
Well, that's taking care of the work.
And like when all of those align, that's what I'm after. It's not, necessarily to put, so and so in front of my audience because they'll pay me the most. And that's not.
But that's why you'll get paid the most, is because that's what you're focused on. If you take care of the work will take care of you. I had
a sponsor recently who does a lot of webinars. They have like this sales program that they like, this kind of like, I don't want to get too much into it, but I had this sponsor come on, and like I told them to go in one direction, but they didn't. They wanted to go in their direction. So we did it their way. And it wasn't well received by the audience, right? This is an In-House Connect thing. It happened. And I track the event scores, like people rate the events. And this event got like a standard maybe 2 or 3 standard deviations, like lower than our average event. Like it was a complete flop.
Because he didn't listen to you.
Because I don't know. I mean, because it wasn't well received by the audience. Whatever this program was, it wasn't well received, right? So our average is like a 4.6, and this was a 4.1, right? Okay. And so they wanted to do this again, and I'm like, listen, I love money, but I'm not going to do this again. We have to change. You have to, the audience clearly. The expectations of the audience weren't honored on the first one, and I'm not going to do that again. So here's what we have to do for the second one. And we did it, and it was much, much better that way. And so really it's honoring the audience expectations and ensuring a great outcome. And once that is aligned, they got a great result. They got people who are interested in their product and service, and In-House Connect benefited as well. So I really seek for a win-win-win. If I don't think I can help you, or if I don't think I can help a sponsor, then again, I love money, but if I can't help you, if I don't believe that I can help you, then I'm not gonna try and work with you, because at the end of the day, I have to protect my audience.
Do you think you can help me?
you got a lot of problems. No,
I'm a good public speaker. I feel like I would engage your audience pretty well.
So for you, and I have a dear cousin who also loves estate planners, and I would switch it up. I would try and cultivate that audience differently.
It's not just estate attorneys; it's all attorneys, because again, they can all get paid referrals. So I did like a financial planning type of program for my audience, and it was okay. Like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I really wanted, like, this is going to work so well. So I have to protect you. I have to protect me. And I have to protect my audience. A webinar that was sort of titled like how to earn 25% real estate referrals, something like that. All you got to do is call me. I take care of it.
my audience is nationwide. Can you service somebody in Boise, Idaho, and San Francisco?
Well, it's not that I could service someone in Boise, Idaho. It's that someone in Boise, Idaho might know someone who wants to buy real estate in New York City or sell real estate in New York City, and they can earn a referral in Boise, Idaho from that. And they all have to do is sit back. And 25% against, let's say, a $60,000 commission is a great payday.
I guess I'd have to think about it more. But for me, like, again, you get a lot of, if life is, or if business is, you're a batter in a batter's box and pitches keep coming at you, you can wait for your pitch. Like I try and wait for the pitch that I can, hit a grand slam with. I'm in the relationship business. If I know I can do good for you, then I'm all about it, and I'm very aggressive. If I'm not so confident, or if I know for sure that it's not going to work, you know what I mean? So I gotta optimize for those ideal scenarios.
Well, I hear you. I think that's one school of thought. Forgive me if I challenge you a little on this.
The challenge.
I think that at the same time, you and I'm only referencing baseball because you said you're trying to hit a grand slam, you're waiting for your pitch. But in order to win baseball games, you need runs. Like you need singles, you need doubles, you need triples. It's not really like, most baseball games don't win because of home runs.
Right.
They win because people get on base. So what I'm curious is, why not try to hit as many runs as possible, at least in the early stages of your business, so that you can bring the network from 50,000 to 100,000 to 200,000. And then, when you reach a certain point where you're just cash flow, the cash flow is really, generous at that point, then maybe wait for your pitch.
It's a great question. It's a great question. I guess I try and it's a great question. And I guess to answer your question and to extend the baseball analogy a little bit further, and apologies for those who are listening who are not baseball fans,
even if you're not a baseball fan, just playing Little League, you know what I'm talking about.
Like, I know what the sweet spot is for this audience. I'll tell you, over time, my confidence in my ability to anticipate my audience wants, needs, and desires, I feel very strong in. And I do feel like I have, like, if I'm gonna, let's say I want to walk, right? If I just want to get on base, if I just want to do a webinar to build goodwill with my audience, I've done that many, many times, but it's not going to be what you're describing. It's going to be, let me take an influential person on LinkedIn, an influential in-house counsel, who does blogs, who writes, who has an audience themselves, and I'll put them on my platform for free. Like, free. Yeah. Totally free. I'm not going to necessarily give them the list because that's like a whole nother thing.
No. But if you invited influencers to come and speak to your audience, like here's a free audience, of how many, what's the biggest event you ever did?
That's another story in and of itself. I think I had 1,400 people on.
Okay, so I give you a free audience of 1,400 people to come and give you your spiel to.
Yeah.
Like a Gary Vee or any of those influencers, like Hormuzzi
I think I want to
Jay
go
Shetty,
after
those guys. Like I'm saying, Jay Shetty, if he hopped on and gave like a mental health seminar to your audience, they'd probably eat that up. And it'd be great for your brand.
For sure. I want to go after, I think Ray Dalio would be interesting. Maybe he'll be
master of economics.
That would be interesting. He's worked with In-House Counsel before. I want to get Simon Sinek and Adam Grant. That's like, but I got to pony up for those guys.
Yeah, I think Simon Sinek is like $150,000 to book him for a speaking
engagement. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and he speaks in front of massive crowds. Yeah. But I think like, if you get your network to like 500,000, to the point where you have 10,000 people per event,
Interesting economics. So there's 1.3 million lawyers in America. And that's like kind of like the numbers I play with. I estimate between 200 and 400,000 are in-house counsel. So my goal is actually to get to 100,000. That's like the only, I don't have many goals, frankly. I don't know. I just keep going as hard as I can.
Well, one of my questions for you what are your ambitions for In-House Connect? Yeah. So 100,000 subscribers.
100,000 subscribers. That's the number I want to hit. That's like the only number goal I've ever really ascribed to myself. And it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard to get traction because, you get people's emails and you're growing every day. I do lots of free webinars.
But the pace is not what you're ideally looking for.
It's just hard to, you have to do different mediums.
You don't really do much marketing.
I don't do much more. I mean, theoretically, the product itself is marketing because the webinar is free. People can search. But you
still have to create awareness about the platform, about the product itself. So why don't you just start adding legal value publicly? Because your target audience is in-house counsel, right? So you don't have to worry about the general public liking or not liking your content. You have a target audience. You're trying to reach that target audience. So like hopping in front of the camera or just picking up your phone and giving like a word of advice in the legal realm, that and like linking your company every single time, and doing 3 or 4 of those a week, like that's going to help the network
For
grow a
sure.
lot faster than you expect, than you think.
I mean, look, I've been doing this. So I like to say 2022 was like the first year that was like the proof of concept year. This is like my first real year.
Because now you're in it 100%.
I mean, and you know, for the listeners out there, I had you every day asking me when you gonna go.
Yeah, it's true. Because I saw how passionate you were about it, and I happen to think that this business is ridiculous amounts of attention. And I've spoken to a few of our friends at the synagogue who agree that, you know, what you've done here is really, really special. And I think that if you take, like, you know, a more aggressive approach into, you know, building awareness around the service, the platform itself, I just think that the growth is going to be a lot faster and a lot more exponential than you realize. Yeah. You know, but now that you have moved on from corporate law and you've joined the club of entrepreneurship, or the major leagues, you work for yourself. So how does that make you feel now? You're less than a year in. So how does that make you feel to be really, you know, on your own? I mean, feeling the heat?
I'll tell you, the first month I went in, I was solo, was August of 2023, and August is the worst time to go solo on anything. Like August,
Why?
People are on vacation. It's quiet, it's dead, and I was very much feeling the heat at that point. I also happened at that particular time, I hired somebody that was paying them a lot in salary, and I was like stressed. I was pretty I wouldn't say I was like the most stressed in my life. I've been more stressed, but I was feeling the heat in a big, big way.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel good that I survived that period, and I've seen like brighter days. But it's, I think this alcohol is catching up with me. But I love
Welcome
it.
to the podcast.
Yeah. Now you can press the record button. I'll tell you, I mean, look, I love being my own boss. It's a challenge every day. I'm still challenged. There's tons more to do. I think it's I'm in it for the long game.
Right.
Simon Sinek has, you know, one of his talks was, or one of his ideas that made a big impression on me, not just start with why, but it was the infinite game versus the fixed game, right?
The finite game.
The finite game.
Yes.
And that
you're not playing to win, you're playing to sustain, to stay.
So I very much believe in the infinite game, and I'm an infinite game player, and I'm very slow, and I'm very deliberate.
That you said that. I love that you said that.
I'm like I bought in big time to that. Frankly, if I was I know in my heart that I could be making a lot more money if I was pushing in-person events, and I was doing these conferences, I was doing all this stuff. And one day that will come, like, no doubt. But I'm just doing it a little bit slower at my pace, at something that's comfortable for me.
Yeah, but that's respectable very much, because you don't want to compromise the integrity of your brand. You know, you've put a lot into building this network to where it is, and you don't want to see that integrity get hindered in any way. So I understand that. And also, you know, a lot of businesses, you don't want to grow too fast. My father always told me, don't grow too fast. You know, his business, it could have exploded if he just took a little bit of debt from the bank, but he never believed in that. He never believed in borrowing money that way. So, you know, that's a tool you can use to speed up your business, but you could also dig a massive hole. And that's a lesson that I even learned, you know, trying to develop property in another state. You know, I lost a lot of money trying to do that. And the hole got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was like, all right, I gotta get the hell out of this thing, you know? So I like that. I like that what you said. It makes a lot of sense. You know, playing the infinite game is what's going to make sure that your business stays alive forever.
Yeah. I haven't taken, you know, no VC, no PE, nothing. It's just, it's bootstrapped. I got,
it's online. It should be bootstrapped.
You know, but
you should do once a year, like a big event, the way like APAC used to do Washington DC, or they get 18,000 people to come. If you have 50,000 people in there, you can get like a summit where people pay, $1,000 a ticket or something like that.
I have like a few initiatives that I want to execute on, and then I want to like really pivot hard, in person, and I want to make that sing, but it's very hard to
you're gonna have to travel a lot.
I'm gonna have to travel a lot. That's, which good and bad. It's challenging. Like virtually, I can control the environment. It's a much easier task, right, to bring people together. In person, it is a completely different ball game. It worked really well in New York City when we had our meetups, and we had it down to a science.
You're
and it was
gonna
beautiful.
need probably like reps in every state. People who are directly connected with the company.
It's how do I expand that energy across, like, geographically, like again, how do I find somebody who's going to look for the guy who's a lone wolf, right? Because that is a key component of the success of In-House Connect, frankly. Like I've myself, it's funny, I attend a lot more conferences than I ever did before, and I feel the difference, like as somebody who is like there's a conference I attended recently for a group, and frankly, I'm trying to sell into this group, right? They're my prospective customers, so I'm a vendor. This is a vendor customer relationship. The membership is the customers, and I'm the vendor, right? And it's funny, I went to their annual meeting, right? I went to Miami for this annual meeting, and I'm thinking, like, I had this nonsense idea that they're gonna love to have me because I have all these people, I have all these in-house counsel, and like that's a valuable network, and the skies are gonna part for me, and the red carpet's gonna be rolled out. Everyone's gonna love me. It was obviously that wasn't the case. Like nobody could give two craps about me. Nobody knew me. And like I felt, from somebody who's usually, I have friends, I have fans, I have people who know me, to go to a completely cold environment was such a jarring experience for me.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, like, hey, these networking events, there's a lot to be said for generating a warm reception.
Yes.
And that is that.
Now you're thinking hospitality.
Like that is where the superpower is. That's what I think I do really, really well.
It's where the superpower is in everything.
Yes.
It's in hospitality.
It's making people feel comfortable, making people feel wanted and welcome,
heard, seen, and understood.
Like even before we get to that point, it's just to like, hey, like I'm so glad you're here. Forget what even you have to say. It's I'm so glad you're here. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? That initial like just little switch, because I went to this conference, and I've been to multiple conferences, so it could be many conferences that I'm referring to, but it's like nobody cared. Nobody wanted to meet me. Nobody knew me. A few people did know me, and like that was awesome, and that was great. But like just going from like 0 to 1, right? Going to 0 to 1, it was like impossible. It was
right.
Like the distance was infinity practically. So that means I have to generate my own like, hey, my name is Shai, my own conversations on the line for the bar, as opposed to somebody seeing me like, hey, thank you so much for coming. What do you do? What's your, and like, oh, meet so-and-so, meet Ariel. He's also, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I've definitely found in our interactions that you are a brilliant networker, and it's clearly the thing that you're passionate about, which is connecting people and, curating the environment for people to come together. So, and that's how I opened this conversation, because like I said, the law is your life, but it's not the law that's what's really driving. It's not the law is not the gas in your engine. It's really more, this passion that you have in bringing people together and that networking element. And like I said, it's something that I feel like we have in common, because real estate is not the thing that wakes me up every morning. It's my creativity that wakes me up every morning, that excites me. And real estate is the vehicle for that. But okay, I only have a couple more questions for you, and then I'll have you out of here. Sure. We've been at this for
for 90 minutes. Yeah. Well, let's stay. Come on.
Good. If you've got time, I'll pour you another.
Yeah. I think I'm good, but yeah. Please continue.
Turning away from In-House Connect for a minute, what advice would you give to someone who just graduated law school?
Great question. So what I would tell them is, whatever you think your path is going to be, 80% it will not be the path that you will end up following. And you have to understand, you have to internalize that what you think the future holds for you is overwhelmingly not going to happen. Okay, assume it's not going to happen. And
that
then
sounds like advice for everybody.
law school is no different than life, right?
Yeah.
I would say, number one, don't have any preconceived notions about where you're going to end up. Be prepared for anything. And then I would say, number two, and again, this is like, I wish I heard this before. Make friends with every single person in your class. Make friends with every single person in your class. It is so important. I'll never forget. I was myself. I was I was a state court clerk, which is like a semi-prestigious, position, and people were applying for the next year, right? So they do a year in advance the hiring. So, they hire for the current year a year in advance. So I had just started as a clerk, and I was getting applications for next year's clerks. And happens to be one of my law school classmates was applying at my judge to be, next year's clerk. All right, a law school classmate. I just graduated with this person. I remember their name. I remember what they look like. I didn't say 2 words to this person all the 3 years we were in law school. And we were in the same section. I saw them every day. Never had a conversation. What a waste. What a complete waste.
It's like the networking starts right from the beginning.
Right. These the law students, your classmates, your colleagues in business, they're the future leaders of America, right?
Not just that, they are the one. Like, this is another saying I've been really passionate about lately is clients come and go. But it's actually your peers, your colleagues, in my context, the real estate brokers that we do business with, the people that you see on the other side of a deal sheet, that's the thing that's eternal. That's the thing that never changes. So if you don't have good relationships in that area, you're screwed.
So the biggest break in my career by far was the job at the tech startup. And that only happened because a law school classmate who I was friends with was VP of legal at this tech startup. And that relationship would never have been there if I wasn't on the negotiation team, right? And we worked together very closely for a period of time. Don't undervalue the relationships in the classroom, in the school that you're going to meet. I mean, if you go to a top law school, right? If you go to Harvard or Yale, NYU, these are, there's a realistic chance that your classmates are going to be Supreme Court justices and partners at big firms and
so
all of that.
It helps to be friends.
It helps to be friends. I would say for sure, whoever you are out there, befriend everybody in your class. But for the people like me who went to schools that are not the top of the rankings, who are just, middle of the road, so to speak, it still makes sense for you to be friends with every single person in your law school class. You don't know where people are going to end up, and believe it or not, you will see your law school classmates in the future, and they will be in positions to help you. And like this gentleman, again, I was a law clerk. I could have gotten this guy an interview, and my judge was like, "Do you know him? Do you know anything about him?" I'm like, "I don't know a thing about this guy," and that was it. And that was it. His resume went into the garbage, and nothing to be said. If that was me, and I could have lost my big break if I wasn't,
That's a really good advice. Makes a lot of sense.
I guess the third thing, and this is like closely related, in law school, you have this, people come in, and I'm no different. I had this idea too, but people go into law school as you're trying to compete against each other. You want to be number one, can only be number one, and there's no incentive for you to play nice with others, and that's complete nonsense. Do not buy into that idea. You have number one. Like even if you're right, even if there's only X amount of people who can be in the top 10% of the class, it still doesn't matter if you work together on a if you prepare for the exam, because the exam is going to come. You're going to be alone. Let the chips fall where they may, right? Don't think that you can influence if somebody's going to do better or worse on an exam before the exam happens. So that's number one. Number two, very quickly, imagine a graph of the graph starts off on top, and then like in 2 years, the graph tails off like dramatically. And I want you to imagine like this is the importance of your grades versus time. Like, meaning over time, the importance of your grades diminishes. And after a certain period of time, it is no longer impactful. So whatever you're going to sacrifice in relationship capital versus like being friends with somebody because and not being friends with them because you want to do better than them in law school, that advantage is going to very quickly evaporate over time, and it's going to be meaningless. So after 5 years, nobody cares what your grades are. Nobody cares.
Yeah, they don't. The truth is, in all contexts, there's no GPA on your resume.
Right.
No matter where you're applying for a job.
In law school, some people, if they're like a 4.0 student, which is incredible, they're probably number one in their class. Right. They're going to put that on there.
That's different. But to write number one in your class is, that's a little different. I'll leave my 2.7 off my resume.
I know how it is for law students. I was one not too long ago, and I had that mentality, and it's a mistake. Be friends with everybody. Have a pleasant face, a pleasant demeanor. Be friendly. You don't lose anything at all by being friends. And I wish I can go back in time and befriend. And frankly, now I guess I'm 14 years or 13 years post graduation, and I see people I went to law school with and I'm still connected with a lot of joy and happiness. And I wish, frankly, I was friendlier and I made more friends back in the day. So.
That's great advice. Yeah. Might be a great way to end this, even though I do have one more question.
What's your question?
Is there an area of the U.S. legal system that you believe to be broken?
That's a good question. Look, you...
Well, my follow-up question to that is, has the legal system ever failed you or one of your clients?
It's funny. So me personally, no, but I stay out of the legal system, knock on wood, as much as I can. Definitely the way to succeed in the legal system is to stay out of the legal system as much as you can, frankly. But I guess, look, I saw a lot of bad things in matrimonial law that I didn't like, and that turned me off from that area of the law. I saw, like I mentioned, that client who, got hosed in his divorce, and he got hosed when he tried to make things better. And that was very tough for me to see. I saw somebody my client, he violated, let me paint the picture. There's a restraining order in place. I was representing the husband. The wife had the restraining order. And a court officer saw him mouth something to her in violation of the restraining order. He gets hauled away in handcuffs right in front of my eyes.
Wow.
Right in front of my eyes. And we had an office right across from the courthouse, and I'll never forget this. I can make another poem about this. I'll call it the white van. All right. We had a spot for visitors, and our clients would park. We would go to the courthouse together. They would go home. This guy got arrested. He was kept in county jail for weeks. And his white van was in the visitor section of our parking lot. And every day I would come to work and his van would be there. I would go home, his van would be there. I would come the next day.
Constant reminder.
He's there. It was a reminder. This guy is in jail, and that just messed me up a little bit, and probably got me going away from matrimonial law faster than I anticipated. So I wish, it's a tough area of the law. I don't know that it's broken necessarily. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well that's fine. The truth is, I was 50-50 as to whether you would have an answer to that question.
I would say this: anybody who is in the legal system, criminal, obviously put that on the side, different, but civil, and civil includes matrimonial, right, divorce, and otherwise. I would say this. You really need to consider strongly if you can settle your case, because the longer it goes on, the worse it is for you.
That's the Harvey Specter rule. Never go to trial.
Get out if you can get out of a lawsuit early. That is for sure the best course of action.
Shai Mehani, this has been a very pleasurable conversation.
Thank you.
Cheers to you, my friend. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure. That's a wrap.
And that's a wrap. That was fun.